we'll start with the prayers. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Viditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we continue our study for this beautiful text called as Saddarshanam by Ramana Maharishi. And we have today to start from verse number 31. A quick review of the last 3-4 verses which we have done. From the 27th verse onwards, we are studying about, in fact, from 25 onwards. From 25th verse onwards, we are trying to understand what is the ego I in all of us. Ego I is basically a part of the subtle body. Tattva Bodha we have studied, and in that ego I is a part of the Antakaranam. Antakaranam means the mind complex for all of us. The mind consists of 4 parts. One is called as the Manaha, which is the emotions part of our inner instrument. The second is Buddhi. Buddhi means intellect, which is the determining faculty in us. Suppose I want to attend a class, then this is decided by the Buddhi. Suppose I feel very happy or sad, that belongs to the mind portion, which is the emotions. Then the third factor is called as Chitta. Chitta means memory. All the past impressions about our experiences are stored like the storage device which we use. We have the iCloud, for example, or we have the memory capacity of the laptop. So similarly, each one of us has a memory capacity, and that is called as Chitta. All these are used by us for our day-to-day living. And then the fourth part is called as the ego I. The ego I is called as Ahamkara, and this is the I notion in the body. That means when I say I am walking, I am studying, I am listening, this I, which keeps on coming, and we use it for all our transactions. This I is called as the ego I or Ahamkara. It basically signifies 2 things. One is the Ahamkara, which is with reference to the body. The second is Mamakara. Mamakara means all the objects and beings which are related to the Aham. That becomes Mamakara. My car, my house, my property, my wife, my son, my daughter. Whenever we are using my, that is called as Mamakara. So even though the instrument is only one, which is the Antakaranam, it is called as the inner instrument, compared to the Bahya Karanam. These are all, I'm now discussing the Tattva Bodha. Bahya Karanam means the external organs. The Bahya Karanam consists of the Jnana Indriyas, the organs of knowledge, and the Karma Indriyas, the organs of action. So these are the three instruments provided by the Lord to all of us in this body. We are the Jiva, we are the soul who is present in this body, who has taken up this body for a certain purpose. And the purpose is determined by the Lord. For whatever actions which we are supposed to do, which will give us either sukham, which is happiness, or dukkham, which is sorrow, we have taken up this body for these two purposes. This is provided to us by the Lord. I am not the maker of this body. My parents are not the maker of our body. They are only an instrument which are influenced by the will of the Lord. So Ishvara, or the Lord principle, the totality which controls the five elements in this universe, the cause of the universe, that Ishvara determines what type of body I will get. This ego I rises when the world rises for us. That means the ego and the world, they both rise at the same time. That is what was said in the 25th verse. The 26th verse says that the ego I is born by borrowing some attributes from Chaitanyam and certain attributes from the body. And this ego I gets several names, and the ego I, the names of the ego are Granthi, the knot, Vibhanda, that means bondage, with bondage, Sukshma Shariram. These are all the names of the same Antakaranam. Antakaranam, which consists of the ego I, it is called as these names. We have seen this in the previous class. Jiva is another name. Pramata, the knower, is another name. Bhavaha, that means a person who feels, is another name of the ahamkara, the I notion. And this ego I for all of us is born when we wake up in the morning. And again, when we go to sleep, this ego I gets resolved. It is a temporary process in which the ego I, the I notion, gets resolved. It again wakes up in the dream state. It goes through certain other experiences. So we don't have to worry about death as such, because death is nothing else but another form of sleep. We leave this body and then we remain as good as we are sleeping in as good as our sleep state. And then again, the Lord provides us another body, and then we enter the other body. Again, the waking dream sleep starts and goes. So the jiva is under the constant migration of body to body, or is in cycle of three different states: waking, dream, and sleep. So in one body, it goes through several states of consciousness, and then it takes another birth, and then this is how samsara cycle is defined in the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. The 28th verse, which we did last week, it said, how does this ego disappear? And it was pointed out by Ramana Maharshi that the ego disappears when the Atma is known by us. The moment Atma is known by us, then this ego disappears forever. The 29th verse talked about falsification of ahamkara. So once we know that our real nature is called as Atma, which we all experience in our sleep state, then what happens is we take that as our real nature, and then we still continue to experience the ego and the body because of our prarabdha. The prarabdha karma, which we have studied in the Tattvabodha, determines the arrival and departure of the ego in one body. So till the prarabdha karma, either for our own self or for others, is pending to be done as per this law of karma, the ego I will rise, and the only thing which we do after jnanam is we say that this is a false appearance only. Only with the help of ego I, we do all transactions in the world. There is no transaction without the ego I. This point must be very, very clear. We all need this ego. This ego is basically a reflection of the consciousness in the mind. So this is the contribution of Ishvara, the Paramatma principle in the universe. It contributes to the interactions or vyavahara by getting reflected. Then the second component of the transaction is the mind. The mind is nothing else but thoughts. So through various thoughts belonging to sattva, rajas and tamas, we undergo different experiences during the day. And these three determine what type of life we lead. Do we have a sattva predominant? That means we are generally peaceful. Or are we very rajas predominant? That means we are very, very active and sattva is less. Or we are tamasic. These three gunas are determined as per the prarabdha. As per the prarabdha, my mental states, my mental conditions are given to me by the Lord, which I have to experience and go. But only thing is, in verse number 29, Ramana Maharishi says that this ego I is falsified when I come to know the Atma, which is the real I in the body. Today we are going to see the 31st verse, and we'll go straight to that verse. Here Ramana Maharishi starts the topic of meditation, and he says, we just introduced this verse last week, and here he distinguishes the different types of silence. Silence is basically an attribute of the mind, which is described in this verse, consisting of three types. So in the verse, what he says is, diving in silence of the mind, inquire about the root of who I am. Is this silence my nature? Or are the thoughts my nature? This is the type of inquiry which we need to do. See, whenever we are trying to enter into spiritual study, at a higher level, the discussion boils down to the mind. What is the structure of the mind? What is the nature of the mind? This is how, through the mind, by studying the mind, we come to realize what is behind the mind, what is powering this mind. So Ramana Maharshi was an expert in the study of the human mind. And here he says that the silence is either a gross silence, which is called as verbal silence. In speech, that means I don't speak. When I start speaking, the silence is broken. And in a reflective mind, the silence is subtle. So from a gross silence, when we are reflecting on who am I, then that silence is called as a second level. It's a subtler level than the grosser. Then the third type of silence is when the entire chattering of the mind, that means the raga and dvesha, totally end in this body. That is called as deep contemplation, or it's an absorbed state of mental silence. Beyond these three lies the ultimate absolute silence which belongs to Atma. That is what Ramana Maharshi wants to reveal. Beyond this, how can we study this? For example, the silence which we experience in our sleep state. What type of silence is it? It cannot be gross silence because the speech element is not at all there. It is not even reflective or deep contemplation because there are no thoughts at all, neither subtle thoughts or causal way of thoughts. So what is the silence which is the absolute silence? In Mandukya Upanishad, this silence is called as Maunam. Dakshinamurti Stotram also talks about the same silence, which is taught by Lord Dakshinamurti, which we are going to study after this text is over. So I am not the body or senses or the mind. This is a thought which we have to bring deliberately in our meditation. So this verse is now slowly telling us what should be the attitude, what should be practiced in meditation step by step. These type of discussions will help us to understand our real nature, and especially very useful when we are sitting in meditation. Taittiriya Upanishad defines Atma as something which is beyond the speech, and it is also beyond fear. Beyond these two lies Anandam Brahma. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha Anandam Brahmano vidvan na bibeti kutaschaneti. So what this says is, he who knows the bliss of pure awareness, for him alone the words will return without reaching the silent state of Atma. When this is discovered in our own deeper mind, then the Upanishad says we will never be afraid of anything in life. This is one of the benefits of knowing who we are. If we know that that is our real state, that is my nature. When I say real state, means it is our real intrinsic nature. We are going to study in the next 4 or 5 verses the deeper aspects of Mandukya Upanishad. In the next 4 or 5 verses, that's what is the topic for our discussion here. So in the seat of meditation, what we do is we say, I am Ananda Swarupaha. I am the real source of pure bliss, uncontaminated with any dukkham. That is my real Swarupa. And what is the dukkham or sorrow which we experience in our waking state or dream state? It is the sorrow born out of thoughts. When thoughts are there in the mind, that pure consciousness gets reflected in the thoughts, and those thoughts disturb us. They disturb the internal silence of Atma. Those are relative. So any disturbance which is caused in the waking state, we must understand it is a temporary phenomena. It will last for a certain period of time and it will go away. So what we do is we remove the wrong notions in the mind, which are basically habits which we have formed over several years. For example, I'm a limited entity. This is an habit of the mind. This is a thought in the mind. I am limited to this body. Nobody has told us what is our nature. We have never been taught what is exactly my real nature. Nobody has taught me. But we have assumed that I am the body. We have assumed that I am the mind. And this assumption is what Vedanta and the scriptural study helps us to discard, to drop this error. So when we contemplate on this ego I, where is this ego I rising from? If we ask this question, the answer which all of us will get is, it is rising from a state of pure being. Therefore, we say that through the inquiry of ego I, we learn how to drop the ego I as a temporary appearance. That is called as Mithyatva Nishchaya. In Vedanta, Mithyatva Nishchaya means falsification of the ego. This is done cognitively in the mind. That means in my own mind, I say that this ego I, which I experience during the waking state, along with the body, along with the mind, along with the universe, this is a temporary state. It is not a permanent state. It is a temporary state in the waking state. This ego I is not available in the sleep state. So when I try to compare these two, the sleep state and the waking state, the Shastra, the scriptures teach me that the sleep state in which I am there as a witness of the sleeper I, that state is permanent. That state is my real state. The waking state comes and goes, comes and goes. This is the essence of all Upanishads. This is the essence of all verses of the Bhagavad Gita. Most of us are doing the Saturday class, and any text which you take up for study in the Indian scriptures, they will all talk about this pure consciousness as the ultimate goal for us to realize. So when the mind is dead to the worldly roles, that means I'm not a father, I am not a son, I'm not a brother, I'm not a boss, then who am I? That is what the student asks the guru. And then the guru says, the Satya Atma, the pure Atma, without all these roles, that is your real nature. That is called as Shivoham. Shivoham means auspicious, immortal I. This is what the Guru teaches us. And he says that that is your real nature, not the karma indriyas or jnana indriyas or the manaha. We take every object in creation and then we say neti neti. Neti neti means not this, not this. I am not the 5 koshas, I am not the 3 bodies, I am not the 3 states of consciousness, but I am Shivoham, immortal I. This is the discrimination which we need to make cognitively in our mind. This is what is called as Nitya Anitya Vivekaha. That means what is permanent and what is impermanent, which was taught to us in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 2. From verse number 12 to 25, Lord Krishna taught us what is the permanent Atma and what is the impermanent Anatma, which is the body-mind complex. So while living, we have 2 choices after the knowledge of the scriptures. We can live with the ego and can live in the false world in which there is no happiness, because there are always thoughts which will disturb us. There is no happiness at all when we live with ego I. Therefore, we say it is only an appearance. And when do we live with this ego I? We live with the ego I in 3 states. In the waker, it is the waker I. The ego is called as the waker I. In Mandukya Upanishad, the waker I is given a name so that we can reach the final ultimate Atma. So the waker I is called as Vishwa. And the dreamer I is called as Taijasa. Same I, which is with the subtle body is called as Taijasa. When it is with the causal body, it is the sleeper I. And that is given a name Prajna. So these 3 are the names of ego I, in 3 different states. This is our common experience of living. What Ramana Maharshi tries to reveal to us is the egoless state. He says that there is a state in which you alone are there, without the body, without the mind. That state is in Mandukya, it's called as Turiyam. It is the egoless state. That state is called as the moksha, that means liberated nature. That state is in which I am ever secure. I don't need anything else for security except to know that I am that pure awareness. It is ever secure, it is really secure. Whereas the ego I is not at all secure. The life of the ego I is full of problems. Whereas the life of the Sakshi I, or the egoless state, that is the permanent. That is the adhishtanam, the substratum. It is a substratum for what? It is a substratum for the Vishwa Taijasa Prajna. And that substratum can independently exist. For example, the baker I can independently exist without the dream world or the dreamer I or the dream experiences. Similarly, the Turiyam Atma I can exist independently, which is what is taught in the right hand side as the egoless state. And whenever we need to do an inquiry, for knowing my real nature, we must use the scriptures. Without the scriptures, we can never do any inquiry. Even if you do an inquiry, you will not reach the correct destination. So always we must use the process which has been taught to us by the scriptures. Never try to sit down without studying the Bhagavad Gita or the Vedantic text like this or Upanishads. Don't try to sit down independently and ask, because the human mind can never give a direct answer to the self, because it has no capacity, because it is beyond the human mind. So like we use a microscope or a telescope as an instrument, as a pramanam, for the normal eyes, we use the Shastric eye. That is what Arjuna got Divya Chakshu to see the entire nature of the Lord in chapter 11 of the Bhagavad Gita. Now let us try to understand what is called as Mahavakya Vichara. This is an extremely important topic for every seeker who wants to know his true nature. I have dwelt on this particular topic in many instances. Almost in every text which I take, I always spend time behind this topic. In the Upanishads, there are sentences which talk about pure awareness. Like, for example, it will tell us Atma or pure awareness is beyond the senses. It cannot be seen by the eye. It cannot be heard by the ears, and so on. These are all called as Avantara Vakyam. Avantara Vakyam means they will give us a indirect knowledge about who am I. This is called as Paroksha Jnanam. Paroksha means indirect. There is something called as Atma. That is called as Paroksha Jnanam. Whereas a direct knowledge about my nature is Satyam Jnanam Anantam. That means this is my definition of all of us. The name which we get when we are born is only for transactional purposes. But the real name for all of us is Satchid Ananda. There is no difference between your nature and my nature. Therefore, your name and my name is exactly the same. So, the Mahavakya consists of three portions. The first portion is to analyze who am I, which is Tvam Pada. Tvam means I. Tvam means you. But when we are doing this analysis, I have to understand I am doing the analysis of myself. And Tat Pada means I am analyzing the totality, which is how the Mahavakyas, they tell us to do the study. I am the individual, and then there is a totality which is called as Ishvara, that is called as Tat Pada or Paramatma. And then whenever I study this, I divide the study into two portions. For each of these sections, the first is I analyze myself and I find out what is my direct meaning. Who am I? I have a name, I have a form. That is called as Vachyartha. Vachyartha means uttered by speech. And what is Lakshyartha? Lakshyartha means what is an indicative meaning. It is not a direct, it is an indirect meaning of who am I. When I deal with myself, the indirect meaning is the pure consciousness. And the direct meaning, who am I, are the five koshas or the three states, the waker I, the dreamer I. These are all the indirect names, which is called as Vachyartha. Then we look at the Lord. The Lord also has got a direct definition and indirect definition. The direct definition is he is the Paramatma. He has got gross body, which is the entire cosmos. Whatever material cosmos which we see outside, that is nothing else but the Lord. So the direct meaning of Tat Pada, Tat means that. That Lord has got a direct meaning which is defined as the world. And the indirect meaning is existence, Sat principle. This is what Taittiriya Upanishad defines the entire cosmos. This is how it defines Sat Chit Ananda. So when you look at the whole cosmos, the name and form with the objects, gross name and form is the direct meaning, but the real meaning is the pure existence behind this cosmos. Because everything we say is. In the whole universe, the body is, the mind is, the sun is, the moon is, everything we say is. Therefore, the substratum is nothing else but the isness in the universe. And then what we say is, we learn, for example, the universe can be taken as an ocean, and the individual can be taken as a wave. But what is the essence behind both the individual and the total ocean? The essence is water. Similarly, the essence behind me is called as consciousness. The essence behind the world is called as existence. And what the scriptures reveal is that there is only water in this universe. There is no wave, there is no ocean. Wave and ocean are two names. Similarly, Jiva and Paramatma are two names of one entity which is called as Brahman. Like we say water, we say Brahman, or we can call it as pure consciousness, pure existence, or pure awareness. This, when we use awareness, it includes consciousness and existence. Without existence, there cannot be consciousness. Without consciousness, there cannot be existence. So both are two sides of the same coin. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinhati naroparani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani sanyati navani dehi. Very beautiful verse of the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So like a man casts off old clothes and puts on a new shirt or a new sari, similarly the self, the embodied self, that means the jiva, will cast off the body and take on new bodies. It's so simple and so it's such a simple process. That is how Lord Krishna describes death in the Bhagavad Gita. So death is not something to be afraid of. It is only a change of our dress, our kosha. We remove one kosha or a dress and then we put on a new body. So what happens to us when we do this analysis of I, who am I? Then what happens is we get to a state of blankness. This blankness is a silence, but it is different than the silence caused by words. And this blankness is without any objects. Hence, it is called as objectless awareness, which is called in Mandukya as Turiya. Now here, this is where we have to bring the Shastras. Shastra means we have to bring the Mandukya Upanishad and then analyze who am I in my sleep state. Without the Shastras, we cannot do this inquiry. The pure objectless consciousness experienced in the form of silence or blankness is my Swarupam, is my real nature, which is called as Atma Swarupam. The consciousness makes the thoughts known, and the consciousness makes the blankness also known to me. When I say blankness, it means the sleep state where I say I didn't know anything. The moment I wake up in the morning, I look back and try to remember who I was in my sleep state. All of us will get the same answer. I didn't know who I was in my sleep state. You ask anybody after he gets up from sleep, the same answer you will get. So silence cannot be objectified. It is my real nature. That is what Ramana Maharshi wants to teach in this verse. Very, very deep meaning it has got. The same meaning which we will get in Nirvana Shatkam. Manobuddhi ahankara chittani naham Na cha shotra jivhe, na cha grana netre, na cha vyoma bhumir, na tejo, na vayuhu, chidananda rupaha, shivoham, shivoham. What does this mean? It means I am not the mind, I am not the intellect, I am not the ego or memory. And what are these four? These four we have just seen are the aspects of the antakaranam, inner instrument. Why is it called inner instrument? Because this is not visible to us. The external instruments are visible. So here what do we say in this mantra? Shankaracharya says, I am not the organs of perception. I am not the organs of action. I am not the five elements, but I am Shivaha. Shivaha means I am the pure self, pure consciousness without the objects. All of us will have this question in our mind. Does it really exist? Or is it something which I'm imagining? Here we have to be very firm. And here we have to say, the Shastra is the only pramanam. That means the scriptures are the only eyes to know the consciousness. Not only to know the consciousness, but it is the scriptures which will teach us what is the nature of this consciousness. The scriptures tell us that this consciousness has an independent existence without the body and without identifying with the mind or the universe. Because when there is no mind, there is no universe. We are talking about going deep into our own nature in meditation. This is all what we can do in the seat of meditation. Once you have done that and known the real nature of Atma, then even when the eyes are open, you can easily go back to that pure consciousness which you know you are, but which you cannot objectify because that happens to be your subject. The only subject in the entire universe is this Atma. Sankhya talks about one Atma behind your mind, and it talks about another Atma behind another person's body. But Vedanta says, Advaita Vedanta, which is promoted by Shankaracharya, he says there is only one Atma. So Sankhya is a philosophy which talks about many Atmas, but they enter into what is called as Dvaitam. Two-ness, I and the other. Whenever we have I and the other, there will always be problems of samsara. Only in one Akhanda Atma, indivisible Atma, there will be no samsara. No samsara means what? No I-ness, no my-ness, no you-ness, and no it-ness. There is nothing. There is one pure consciousness. And in that state, the ego falls. So whenever we go to sleep, what happens to the ego I is during the waking state, the ego I owns up this body, owns up this mind, and it says, I am this body, I am doing all this. But in the sleep state, this ego I is falsified. And what happens to the ego I? It gets merged into consciousness. That is what we will study in the next verse. So in this verse, this is the climax of the entire 44 verses of Saddarshanam. What happens when the I notion is broken? What happens when the I notion falls? Having reached within the heart here means within our own mind. When we search for this I notion, who is this I which keeps on chattering throughout the day? So even when I am doing nothing, the mind keeps on thinking. That is the ego I. If you want to know what is the ego I, the best way to realize this is just before you wake up in the morning, when your eyes are closed, but the mind is awake, at that time, try to see what is the condition of the mind and what is the condition of the body. The body is lying down, but the mind is awake. And the mind is throwing up thoughts after thoughts after thoughts after thoughts. Eyes are closed, but the mind is awake. That is the best time to realize the ego I. That is called as the waker I. So in the waker I status, the ego I status, what happens is the gross body is seen. And when this gross body is not there, then that state is called as the dream state. A different state where you are identified only with the mind. The sense organs are not working in the dream state. The third state is the sleep state, where neither the mind is working, neither the sense organs are working. Neither the ego I is there, neither the sense organs are there. That is the sleep state. But beyond all this is the Sakshi I. The Sakshi I, the witness I, is the ultimate essence for all of us. In the witness I, there is no male, there is no female, there is no weight of the body, there is only pure awareness. This is what Ramana Maharshi wants to ultimately teach us. When the I notion is broken or false, another I shines in the same place as the ego was. And that is called as the supreme consciousness, supreme awareness, supreme fullness, complete in itself, without an iota of sorrow. This state is called as the Turiyam state, or it is called as the Sakshi state. Pure consciousness, awareness is the Sakshi. Till then, what happens? The Sakshi was mixed up with the waker I, dreamer I, sleeper I. The waker I, dreamer I, sleeper I is the ego I. The Sakshi I is the state in which the ego I has dropped its notion of being separately existing and joins the fullness of the pure consciousness. And when it merges with that consciousness, there is not a single trace of the ego in the big I, which is called as the Sakshi I. In the Ramayana, we have got a character, a villain, Ravana, and he's got 10 heads, is portrayed with 10 heads. 10 heads, they signify that ego, a man with big ego. he can identify himself with so many things in the world. We have one head and we identify with so many aspects. So what is the state of Ravana, who's got 10 heads? With 10 heads, he'll be seeing 10 worlds. So his ego will be so big. And what we are saying is, even when that ego drops, what he sees is the divine light of Sri Rama. When the ego eye drops, he merges in the light of Rama. And he also becomes one with the Lord or with the divine consciousness. So the ego eye hides behind many forms in us. Like what? I take myself to be a doctor or an engineer or a housewife or mother. These are all where the ego eye is hiding. When the ego eye is hiding everywhere, then our internal vision is covered. That means I don't know my real self. So the ego eye, the waker eye, covers my nature of Atma eye. After knowledge, which comes from the scriptures, then I become aware of my real nature. When the clouds are gone, when the clouds which are covering the vision of the sun is gone, what happens? We see the bright sun. So similarly, when I learn to remove this ego eye or falsify the ego eye through this study of Saddarshanam, I learn to see the witness consciousness as my real nature. And only with an inquiry into who am I, who is this waker I, when I learn to drop this shell of the ego, then I will discover my true nature, which in the Vedanta is called as the reality, because we can't use any other term for it. Everything else is unreal compared to this substratum. Therefore, we call it Satyam. The dream world is unreal compared to the waker. So where does the dream world resolve? It resolves into the waker eye. So the waker eye is the Satyam for the dreamer eye. The dream continues till I wake up. What happens to the waking world? The waking world is also unreal. And where does the waking world resolve? It resolves in Atma eye, when I know the Atma eye. If I don't know the Atma eye, I will still be a waker. For example, if I am not aware that I am a waker, I will still be in dream, continuously in dream. That is what is happening to all of us. When we are continuously without waking up to my super waker nature, I continue to remain ignorant about my real nature. And this waking up is a cognitive waking up. It is not physically somebody is trying to shake you and then it's going to take you to the Atma eye. It's not possible. Through the mind we understand, that's all. That's why we say the Shravanam, listening to the scriptures, is the final understanding of who am I. While listening itself, we should be able to reach this Atma. Cognitively. Cognitive means I am listening, but at the same time, my mind is thinking of the pure state, which was revealed in the last verse. So the resolution ground is called as the Adhishthana. And what is the resolution ground? The resolution ground is Atma. Ahamkara arose from Atma because of ignorance of Atma. After study of the Saddarshanam, what happens? The mind will still wake up every day, but then I will not be connected in the sense that I will not take it as real. Real means it'll come and it'll go. Again it'll come, again it'll go. But I know my real nature. Intrinsically, I know that that pure consciousness state is my real nature. So after Jnanam, the ignorant Atma becomes a knowledgeable Atma. How? Exactly like after Jnanam about the rope, the unknown rope was hidden. That means the rope was hidden. So from unknown rope, the snake came. But what happens with knowledge? The snake resolves into the known rope. The moment I come to know the rope is a rope, then the snake which I was imagining resolves into the rope. Similarly, the entire universe, which I was imagining it to be so real and throwing up thoughts after thoughts during the whole waking state, that process stops and I become very clear and I live as Atma, as pure consciousness, awareness throughout my life. There is no more delusion in me because I have known the real Atma. Body and mind's appearances and disappearances during the waking and the sleep and the dream states, they are all relative in nature, exactly like the snake aspect. They are all coming and going, all delusions. So Ajnata Rajju, that means unknown rope, is the Srishti Karanam for the snake. Similarly, unknown Atma is the Srishti Karanam for the entire universe of experiences. Jnata Rajju means known rope, known Atma is the Laya Karanam. Laya Karanam means resolving ground for the rope snake. A known Atma is the resolving ground for the waker eye. Ahamkara, it arose from the unknown I. Unknown I means Atma. And same Ahankara, where does it resolve? It resolves into the known I. Known I means Atma. How does it become known? Through the scriptures. There is no other way of trying to dissect my sleep state and then suddenly saying, okay, I'll wake up and then in the sleep state, I'll wake up and then I'll see Atma. No, that will not happen. You don't need to do it also because you trust what the scriptures are saying. They say this is what happens to us in the sleep state. We go back to our original nature. As long as you have the Shraddha, the faith in the scriptures, you will believe that that is my real nature. That is what the scriptures are revealing to me. That is the eye of the wisdom which my intellect gets after the study of the Bhagavad Gita or the Upanishads or Saddarshanam. We have covered so many verses of the Saddarshanam. This is called as Sat. This is called as the vision of the truth, which is the translation of Sat Darshan. So like we convert the unknown rope into a known rope and then we resolve the snake, similarly, we convert the unknown waker into the known waker for the dream to get resolved. And for the waker to get resolved, what we need to do? The unknown Atma becomes known Atma by the scriptures, by the use of scriptures. And then when we use this chakshuhu, this eye of wisdom, the waker eye gets resolved. So this is a pure Mahavakya Vichara of how to dissolve the waker eye into the pure consciousness and how the pure consciousness gets revealed. This is the beautiful job done by the Mahavakyas like Prajnanam Brahma, Aham Brahma Asmi. This is what is the job they do in our intellect. They light up our ignite. They light up our intellect. And the huge conflagration of the Atma shines in our intellect. When that happens, all the prarabdha karmas, all the sanchita karmas, all the agami karmas, they all get burnt like a roasted seed. And then what the Upanishad says is, for you there is no more rebirth. You realize your true nature, and the ignorance, which was the mula avidya. Mula avidya means the primordial ignorance which we have been suffering, which this ego I had, that gets removed. The veiling gets removed for the intellect, and then it owns up the pure awareness as its real nature. So this is the beautiful Taittiriya Upanishad mantra in chapter 2 of the Taittiriya Upanishad. The first chapter, the first verse, it says, Om Brahma Vidam Apnoti Param Tadesham Bhukta Yuktam Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman Soshnute Sarvan Kaman Saha Brahmana Vipaschiteti. That means whoever knows this pure consciousness in his own intellect, he is the one who becomes immortal. And in this immortal Atma, all the desires, they get dissolved into that pure awareness. So the dream world enters into the waker and disappears after knowledge of the waker. The waker world enters into Atma and disappears. The waking world disappears after the knowledge of Atma. In Samadhi, we only escape the Ahamkara temporarily. So Yoga Shastra, the ultimate in Yoga Shastra is Dharana Dhyana Samadhi. Samadhi means the Ahamkara you neutralize and you don't have any thoughts. You come into a thoughtless state. That is Yoga Shastra. But Vedanta does not accept that as the ultimate. Samadhi is not given as much relevance in Vedanta as much as it is given in yoga. In yoga, it is the ultimate state to be in, Samadhi state. But what Shastra says is, this is one level lower than the ultimate, which is the Sakshi. Sakshi you can only come to know through the Upanishads. In Jnanam, what we do is we falsify the Ahamkara, and then what happens is, like a cobra whose fangs have been removed, the Ahamkara, which was causing samsara for us, that gets destroyed. And the pure ahankara, the sattvic ahankara, we live with that and we enjoy Jivan Mukti status. I am free while living. Thereafter, what happens? Ahankara will not bother me. Before the knowledge, the ahankara was the boss in this body. The ego I was the boss. But now who is the boss? The Sakshi I is the boss. It has won over the ahankara, the fight which is inside, which went along for so many years for us. Right from a childhood till today, this fight was going on inside between the Sakshi I and the ahankara I. But with the knowledge of the scriptures, with the knowledge of Saddarshanam, I have learned how to make that ahankara docile. So whenever the ahankara jumps up, tries to show its fang, immediately we say, we realize and say, I am that awareness. I am that Shivaha. I am that auspiciousness in this body. And what happens to the ahankara? It will lie away. This is how the ultimate peace is realized in the Atma. In our own self, what we realize is, Mayeva sakalam jatam, Mai sarvam pratishtitam, Mai sarvam layam yati, Tad Brahma Advayam Aham Asmi. In me alone, this entire ego I rises, it gets sustained, and it resolves. When it rises, the world is born for me. When it is sustained, the world is sustained for me. When the ahankara I, the I notion gets resolved, the world gets dissolved for me. For me means what? For that consciousness which is reflected in the mind, which is the jiva. The jiva realizes that it is the pure consciousness. It is not the consciousness which is attached to the mind. The consciousness which is attached to the mind is called as ahamkara. The consciousness which is pure I is called as aham. That aham, once we learn to remove it and separate, that aham can be joined with the Paramatma aham, which the totality of the aham, the pure consciousness, and then there is only one pure, indivisible consciousness or existence. Before Jnanam, I am the body, born into the world. After Jnanam, I am Atma, into which the world is being born and the world resolves. Atma Bodha, we have done this text, the verse number 9. It says, Shankaracharya says there, he is the author of Atma Bodha, he says, the things and beings are only a mental projection upon the substratum Atma. That Atma is given a name Vishnu. Vishnu means what? Existence, consciousness. These are all names. I can call it Vishnu, I can call it Devi, I can call it Shiva. All these are names for one entity, which is the substratum. The common name which Vedanta gives for that is Satchidananda. Like we have different ornaments given different names, ring, bangle, chain, they are all names of one same gold. The whole universe is nothing else, name and form of one Satchit Ananda or pure awareness. Okay, so I will finish this one slide and then we will continue next week. I am Atma in the waking, dream, and sleep state. The mind rises and falls in these three states. In Bhagavad Gita, it says, Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tattvavit pashyan shrinvan sprishan jigran asnan gachan swapan swashan pralapan visrijan grinnan unmishan nimishan napi indriyanen indriyartheshu vartante iti dharayan. Very, very important verses of the Bhagavad Gita, which the Lord clearly says this, that I do nothing, but the sense organs are interacting with the sense objects, which is my lower nature. That is called as Prakriti. I am the Purusha, I am the Atma. In the Anatma world, the interactions are going on, but I am Satchit Ananda Atma. The same thing we have to realize in our own nature also. I am the pure consciousness, and all these three states are coming and going. I am at a higher level, absolute level. And when I realize this, I will realize Aham Purnaha Asmi. I am full, I am complete. I have absence of all attributes. All the attributes belong to the body or mind, but Atma has no gunas. That is why the chapter 14 of the Bhagavad Gita is the realization chapter in the Bhagavad Gita. 13th and the 14th chapter. Clearly the Lord tells us, I am not the nature, I am not the Prakriti. The same thing is called as Kshetram. The same thing is called as Anatma. Different names are used, but ultimately the Atma, the seer, the Purusha, the witness, the Sakshi, all these are all names of that one entity, which is what I am in my sleep state. In my sleep state, which is beyond the sleep state. Next week, we will revise these verses 27 to 32. 27 to 31, we will do this revision again because this is the essence of the Saddarshanam. What we have learned today is the essence. Mahavakya Vichara, it is the same which has been conveyed in all the texts, in all the Upanishads. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is this which is revealed. So next week, I will do this revision starting from slide 139, and then we will proceed to 32, verse number 32 onwards, up to verse number 44. It will take maybe another 3-4 sessions. We'll complete this text. After that, we will do the beautiful text called as Dakshinamurti Stotram. Okay, so that's for today. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnahat Purnamudachade Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyade. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Yes, are there any questions on today's session? Shanmugam, can you open up the speakers, for everybody. They can ask the questions directly. Shama, you wanted to ask some question? You can unmute and then you can ask me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. As I have said, it's another very, very great class. And so my questions, just 1 second, because I've actually written it down. Mm. So as you've yourself described, this verse 32 is the climax of the Saddarshanam. My question is, so what we are saying is the real eye shines in the place of the false eye.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you, in this state, do you actually have you don't practice silence, but you just see because there is absence of thoughts.
Yes.
So there is a total silence. Yeah.
Yes.
So that
There
was
is a total silence because there is absence of thoughts.
Thoughts. Yeah. So but all that noise, everything has gone completely.
Gone. The chattering mind has become non-chattering mind. It has become, it's gone. The fangs are gone.
Okay. The next question is, so what we are learning here is through Ramana Maharshi that there is, through Lakshartha or Paroksha Jnanam, we are learning about that real Atman, isn't it? It's a Lakshartha, it's an indication. So initially, we, through your classes and through our own learning, we are actually gaining this kind of Jnanam.
Yes.
Which is actually only a Lakshartha, is only a pointer. It's not the Jnanam itself.
Yes, it is a pointer because it cannot be defined. It is beyond words, and all words can only go up to a certain point. Like we say that the words can go up to that pole vaulter, to drop the pole and then drop to the other side. It is the job of the grace of the Lord. It happens.
So continuously it is directing towards that goal of Chaitanya Darshanam when we see our truth. Yes. Okay, so that's number 2. Question number 3. In self-inquiry, and this is a really important one, there is actually no other prerequisite required apart from through the scriptures or through whatever classes we're in, having that intense shraddha of the truth that is there of the Atman. We have to just, apart from that, suppose today I stop reading any scriptures, studying scriptures. Because I believe now that there is something about me, my self-inquiry, that much I just have that faith. What I see of me today is not the real I, there is something else. Is there anything more as a prerequisite that is required?
Yeah, see what happens is this knowledge which we learn, it does not become a firm knowledge till the mind settles down completely.
So you have to continuously
read, continuously listen.
The Shravnam Mananam.
Yeah, in spite of Shraddha, what we need to do is continuously keep listening to be in the framework of the Shastra.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what happens otherwise is we go back to our habitual nature of I am Shama, and then we continue and get into a world of our own.
However, it is curious, isn't it, when you actually think about Ramana Maharshi's life?
Yes.
What scriptures was he studying and reading, during his sadhana?
Yes. So what
he was not.
See, what he read, nobody knows. But Ramana Maharshi, they say about him that he had a guru in the previous life, not this life.
Okay, I see.
See, that this is where they talk about the the people who have got the vasanas from the previous birth.
Yeah. Similarly, about Ramakrishna Paramhans.
Similarly about Ramakrishna Paramhans. You see, these are all like they say in the scriptures. The scriptures say very clearly that the spiritual field, we are all growing in the field and there is continuity in that.
Okay.
The physical body doesn't continue,
Uh-huh.
but the mind continues, and
Right.
the spiritual knowledge continues. So if you have picked up the spiritual knowledge up to a certain extent in this birth, that spiritual knowledge will be ignited again in the next birth.
Accumulative, yeah.
It is a cumulative, and time comes, suddenly you feel that this is also, everything makes sense to me.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, Question number 4. After experiencing the real I can still function in the transactional world, but with a very different experience, as whatever is the outcome is inconsequential. As you say, you live as pure Atman,
Yes,
because the unknown rope as a snake is killed forever,
yes,
and you just now actually the rope which it was in its real form.
yes. You know, the
The-
Sakshi I was the real aham in the
all
body.
the while, all the while,
All the
yeah.
while, it was the Sakshi aham.
Uh-huh.
In between, the ahamkara comes and goes in waking and in sleep it resolves.
Okay. And through this process, this is the last one, I promise. Through the process of dhyanam, dharanam, samadhi, which is the not the Vedanta path, but the path of the yoga,
Yeah,
they achieve. And you have said this is still the Vedantists feel that it's a step lower than
Vedanta.
true,
Yes,
true this.
yeah, because there is duality in this yoga.
Although they even there they say savikalpa and nirvikalpa samadhi, isn't
Yeah,
it? So there is.
nirvikalpa samadhi, but then when they talk about nirvikalpa samadhi, they talk as if that I am the seer of that blankness. There is
Uh-huh.
still a duality. Whereas what we say in Vedanta is that the blankness gets resolved in me. I am the only one which exists.
And so uh, I actually just want to go through that. On page 138, there is this, which is a very nice little definition you have of Purnam,
Yes,
which is absence of all attributes,
yes,
not absence of anatman, but absence of the guna. Is that correct?
that's correct. You see, when
Okay,
the,
that's fine.
yeah,
Because I was listening and I quickly then it moved on to that because it was the last line on that slide.
yes,
Um, and so finally, can we say that once theoretically this realization of the Atman, we can safely say as a story of the Jiva, the story of the Jiva, it ends with the realization. And one can say he, she, or the Jiva lived happily ever after. Like how we
yes,
hear
that's correct.
stories.
Yes,
The Jiva lived happily ever after.
yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you. And the others who have been listening to my madness.
Okay, no
Thank you.
problem. It's a very good understanding you have of the text what we discussed today. Uh,
Very inspiring.
yeah, Lakshmi is saying that ultimately we only have complete love, unconditional love, without particular rupa, ishta devata. That's correct. You see, that pure consciousness is only pure love. That is the only where it is totally unconditional. Like my love for myself is absolutely unconditional. Anything can happen. The love which I have for everything else in the world is conditional. If that object or being can give me joy, then it is an object of love for me. Anything, any object, the TV for example, if it is working well, if I can use it, or my laptop, if I can use it, it is an object of joy. The same laptop, if it is not connecting to Zoom today for the class, it becomes a complete object of sorrow for me. Same mobile, if I don't get connected to the world through WhatsApp, it becomes an object of sorrow. So little things, they all become objects of joy. Same with people also. A friend of mine, She didn't call me on my birthday, and it was so important for me. Again, she becomes an object of sorrow for me.
So,
All our relationships, even with God, He never listened to my prayer today. Therefore, the God also becomes an object of sorrow. The only thing which is unconditional love is Atma. I never have any conditions to love myself. That is what Lakshmi is saying. Very nice point she brought up. Uh, Tina is saying is moksha is understanding ahamkara. Yes, the more we understand this ahamkara, the better we will be qualified to claim Atma. The more we understand, very clearly we understand the ahamkara, then what happens is I then learn to claim the pure consciousness.
Trying hard to come here.
Ganesh is saying in the verse Purnamada that you just ended this has got 7 to 8 holes. Please explain each word, interpretation very shortly. I almost got it, but the ending whole to whole, also whole, I don't understand. This is a very big topic. This is the explanation of this is Purnamada mantra. It will take 1 hour for me to explain if I have to go into detail. You have asked me to explain quickly what I'll try to explain to you shortly. What it means is now that you have learned Saddarshanam, I can explain is much more easier. This Atma is infinite. It is beyond time and space. Anything which is beyond time is full. It is full and complete. It's whole. That is the Atma part. Now what Purnamada says is Purnamada. Purnamada means that Purnaha, that Atma is full. That is one part. Then Purnamada Idam. What it says is this world which has come out of this of that Atma or Brahman is Purnaha. Because nothing can come out from another thing which is not Purna. That means the whole universe is Purnaha. It is visible part of the same infinite. The infinite, that Purna, the Atma or Brahman, that has got two aspects: the visible aspect and the invisible aspect. The invisible aspect is called as the Purna Idam, which the visible aspect is called as the Purna Idam, and Purnam Adaha is the invisible aspect. Now, what they say is when you take out this world out of that Purnam Atma, that means from the pure consciousness, when this world comes in the Jagrat Avastha, then what happens is when it goes back and resolves, even when it is in the Jagrat Avastha, that Purnam Atma is still Purnam only, because it is pure, it is in a different level of consciousness. Like the waker and the dreamer, waker is always free, is always complete. He is never affected by the dreamer. Similarly, the Purnama Adaha is full and complete. It's in a different Paramarthika level. This Vyavaharika level, Purnam Idam, is coming from that pure consciousness, and it goes back to that pure consciousness. When it goes back and joins, it again is Purnaha. It again is complete because it is at a different level of consciousness. They are talking about Paramarthika and Vyavaharika. Paramarthika is called as Adaha. Idam is Vyavaharika. The entire world is beautifully described in this one wonderful verse from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. This verse, Purnamada, comes in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. And it is a complete mantra because it is giving us the essence of who we are. We are ultimately beyond time, beyond space. What we experience in time and space is nothing else but it is a superimposition on the substratum, which is the pure consciousness. So the body and mind which we see is an appearance. This gets resolved into the pure consciousness, which is the real. So Purnaha Aham is the ultimate Atma, Swarupa. I try to explain, but anyway, this is just the problem is this can, you see, this verse does take a long time, but I hope you have got the essence behind this message. Love is a guna. Aditya Maheshwari is asking, love is a guna? Yes, it is a guna. It is a guna of the mind. It can be any guna. Always don't stop with that. Always ask the question, go to the next level. This is what will be taught in the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Those who are going to attend, you will learn that. Any value, always you take it as analyze further. Is it sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic? There is a sattvic love, rajasic love, and tamasic love. You can do analysis and you can come out with your own finding. What is sattvic love? What is rajasic love? When it is filled with selfishness, it is called as rajasic love. When I want to hurt somebody through loving somebody, I want to hurt that fellow, that is called as tamasic. But the pure love is for the Lord or for the Atma. That is called as sattvic love. Okay, Ganesh, good. You've got it. Well done. And one small tip I want to give it to these people who are listening here. This I have used this, and it helped me to go deeper into the mind. And that is, you can try it out and you can tell me whether it works or it doesn't work. See, when we go to sleep, I want you to remember one last thought. And that thought should be, I am going back to my nature, to my real self. Let this be the thought before you go to sleep. And then the first thought, make it a habit to say, yes, I've come back from my original nature into this world, into this body. And I will conduct the life as it comes, it'll go. So let us try to bring these two thoughts. One, when you go to sleep, okay, you may be thinking about 100 things during the day it happened. Try to bring this thought, I am going back to my home, my real home. Mm. My real home is that home which the scriptures have described to me. That is that pure awareness. Mm. When I go back to sleep, let this thought come. Because I have found that the ego gets suppressed and you realize the beautiful things they teach in the scriptures, in the Gita and the Upanishad, they become easy to understand. Because the mind learns that what I was in my sleep state is my real nature. When you bring this deliberate thought, Doesn't matter. You just for 1 second, split second, let that thought arise in your mind, and then let it. Then you go to sleep. That's it. This will help us to remember my nature of pure consciousness throughout my life. The remembrance comes of that nature, and that memory of mine when I was in the sleep state as pure consciousness, that becomes firm, that becomes nishtha. And then that becomes nishtha and firm, then the scriptures, what Ramana Maharshi is trying to tell us, that I notion gets dissolved in sleep in the real pure I, that becomes a reality for us. Each one can experiment it and try it out and see whether it works. Mm-hmm. This is what Ramana Maharshi was trying to tell us. He was trying to teach that this I notion, many a times I used to wonder, what is this I notion which Ramana Maharshi is trying to teach us? This I notion is what is there throughout the waking state. This is the waker I. This I notion is there in the dream state also. This I notion is there in the sleep state also. But what Ramana Maharshi is saying is, what is beyond these three, this I. Mm. And that is something, if you try to say, I am going to my original nature, which is the house of Atma, my pure nature. Mm-hmm. And this is what I am not telling from my own self. This is taught by the scriptures. I am only remembering the teaching of the scriptures when I go to sleep. I am remembering the teaching of the scriptures when I wake up in the morning. This remembrance gives me the benefit to remember, even when I am transacting, I will remember this intuitively. Mm-hmm. This will come. I can face any challenges of life. When this knowledge comes into me intuitively, I get tremendous strength. Give it a try and see whether it works for you. And then if it works, let me know. Okay, that's it for today. It's 8:15. And if anybody else has any other question?
Yeah, there's actually one more question in the chat.
Right, yeah.
There's actually one more question in the chat. I can ask after you address
that. What is that question?
The last one. So Purnamida Purnamidam will be Jiva Ishvara Aikyam or Jiva Ishvara Ekatvam.
Okay. Purnamada Purnamidam will be a Jiva Ishvara Aikyam. You see, Aikyam, Jiva Ishvara Ekatvam or Aikyam. Generally, they say in the scriptures it is Aikyam. Aikyam means oneness. It is not Ekatvam. Ekatvam means you're defining that as also one. Actually, Aikyam means there is not even one. Ekatvam and Aikyam, slight subtle difference is there.
Okay.
The Aikyam means there already is there is something which is existing, and this Jiva is already joining that existent Atma.
Okay, sir.
Slight difference. I'm just giving you a very slight, it's a very slight difference which is occurring to me when you are asking this question. Ekatva means that actually both mean the same, but Ekatva means that ultimately you're talking about one. When you say one, it is not it is not non-dual, whereas Aikyam gives the feeling of non-duality.
Non-dual to duality.
Duality. Yes. The moment, see, that is what Shankaracharya says. Ultimately, one of the names or one of the definitions of Atma is Advaitam.
Correct.
Non-dual. And that is why they use the term Aikyam.
Okay, sir. Okay.
You join something which is non-dual by nature.
Which is already existing, and only that
Yes,
one is
it is already existing. The jiva is only merging with that, and therefore when it merges, it is called as aikyam.
okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Rohit?
Shekhar, in your analysis earlier of the Tatpada, the Tvampada, while you were explaining the indirect meanings of the macro and the micro,
Yeah.
I missed the part where about at the start of the Asi because I was writing something else. Could you explain how you connected both of them in
Okay.
the indirect
The
meanings?
connection is only when you look at it from the point of view of lakshyartha. There is no connection. There is division when it comes to vachyartha. Vachyartha means what is direct meaning of the jiva, the direct meaning of Ishvara. They are diametrically opposite. So in vachyartha, in the direct meaning of the jiva and in the direct meaning of the Paramatma or Ishvara, there is no oneness. Because jiva is with a small individual body. Ishvara is with the body of the whole universe. So there is diametrically opposite. Jiva is with a small ego, with a small thinking mind. Ishvara is the total mind. So the attributes of Ishvara, the gunas of Ishvara is Sarva Shaktiman. He is omnipotent, omniscient. My knowledge of the world is nothing. Small little world, I think I know, that is the ego I. That's it. So in the Vachyartha, in the direct meaning, there is no oneness at all. So in my cognitively, in my mind, in my intellect, I should learn to drop the vachyartha, the direct meaning of the jiva, I drop. So what is the indirect meaning of the jiva? Indirect meaning of the jiva is I am a conscious being. And what is the indirect meaning of the Ishvara or Paramatma? It is pure existence. The world exists. The whole universe, matter exists. So existence is the indirect meaning of Ishvara. Indirect meaning of Jiva is consciousness. What then the scriptures is saying is the existence and consciousness are not two. They are both one entity, that is the Asipada. Asi means there is oneness or aikyam between the lakshyartha of the jiva, between the lakshyartha of Paramatma. In the indirect indicative meaning of the jiva, suppose I am asking you, you are Rohit. Shama is there in London. Now, Rohit is a name given to you, but when I am speaking to you, you are hearing. That consciousness in you is the hearing faculty. She is also listening in London. She is also listening. Her name and form is different. Your name and form is different. My name and form is different. So when I see three names and three forms, that is called as the Vachyartha. But behind the name, I'm looking at the consciousness aspect in you. I'm looking at the consciousness life principle in her and the life principle in me. I'm saying it is the same principle in Uma or Jagdish or Bal Shankar or anybody. It is one consciousness. While looking at the ring and the bangle itself, in my intellect, I am thinking all of them is the same gold. I have the Swarna vision, the gold vision. So when I'm interacting with the entire universe, I know that it is only one existence consciousness, which is the truth of this whole universe. That is called as Asipada, oneness. That is what is taught between the 13th chapter to the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. how to look and have this Sat Darshanam. The same thing which Ramana Maharshi is teaching us in this 44 verses, he is teaching, Lord Krishna is teaching in the 14th chapter, and there he says, you remove the gunas of all the people, and then you find out what is that pure Gunatita Atma. So when I remove your gunas of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, when I remove my gunas of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, the substratum on which both are coming up and going down is the same Atma.
Mm-hmm.
That is how Bhagavad Gita uses the same principle of Tattvamasi. Once you have understood how to analyze the Mahat Vakya, then you are coming to the final teaching or the final lesson of Vedanta. The Asipada is the final teaching. Beyond that, once you have understood that that is the one single entity from which the entire universe is coming and going, that is called as the pure consciousness. Once your mind gets that principle in the depth of your own mind, once you're able to bring up that is why I said bring up a thought when you go to sleep and say, I'm going back to my nature. That is where I came into this body at birth. I'm going back every day. I'm in that. That is my real nature. I've forgotten that. And the scriptures are helping me to understand this while I am alive in this body. That is the Asipada. The moment you understand Asi clearly well, then the Mahavakya has done its job for you. And Mahavakya is the one which gives us moksha. Knowing Brahman is Nirgunam, all that is no use. That is only Paroksha Jnanam, indirect knowledge. But that Paroksha Jnanam, indirect knowledge, has to become direct knowledge for me. Aparoksha Jnanam. And that comes only by the study and analysis of Mahavakya. Is it clear?
Yes, thank you very much.
Sorry, and just really I don't know why I missed it, but today is the take home today for me is also the verse 29, that practice of silence.
Yes, Maunam.
Isn't it? Maunam.
Yes.
Which is a very key element, isn't it? Where you literally, it is allowing you the process of not this, not this, not that, because you can see that's rubbish, delete it, throw it away, till you can actually come to the real substance. So
That's correct.
Yeah, that's a continuous thing, which probably is very beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
All this helps us in our real understanding and to know that who am I without this body and mind? You know, so that aspect of that Nirguna Atma, that aspect of me without the Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, the three qualities of the nature, that if I learn, if it comes into my consciousness, that is the real nature. Which is what Jagdish is saying, that when I go to sleep, let me try it out. Give it a try, and that this is how in the chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord says the last thought before you leave this body should be that remembrance of Omkara. Omkara, remembrance, is nothing else but what I have taught you today. That final thought in your mind should be, I am going back to my original nature.
Source, yeah.
That's all. Once you have that, you practice even today while living, if you can practice. See, they say that the sleep state is nothing else but the ultimate laya state. it's a sample of that final state in which we all go. So while living itself, if you can learn to say, I am coming out of my nature into this body every day morning, and then I'm going through these transactions. It may be happy, it may be sad. Okay, fine, let it come and go. But at the back of my mind, I have this one thought. That is my pure consciousness. That is my pure state. It is the same thing which is explained to us in all the Upanishads. It is the same thing which is explained to us in the Bhagavad Gita in the 14th chapter. In the 15th chapter, Uttama Purushaha, the same thing which Ramana Maharshi is teaching in the 32nd verse is the Uttama Purusha.
So it's completely changed, isn't it? From where for such a long time we've used the world as our reflecting mirror to tell me who I am.
Yes.
The world has been telling me you are so, since ever since I grew up. Now you're actually using the other way around. You're actually using the Atman as your reflecting mirror. So you've
Yes.
completely turned full 360 degrees.
That's correct. Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay. Pratyaksha Jnanam, isn't it opposite to Paroksha Jnanam? Okay. This is another big topic. Pratyaksha Jnana means the knowledge which comes from the eyes, ears, the skin, the nose and all that. Pratyaksha means, Aksha means eyes. Pratyaksha means, that means eyes are just one example of Pratyaksha Jnanam. Pratyaksha Jnanam means the knowledge which we get from the 5 sense organs. So the question is, isn't it opposite to Paroksha Jnanam? Now, Paroksha Jnanam means what? See, there are 3 types of Jnanam. One is Paroksha Jnanam, which means something which is distinct, which is distant. For example, London is distant for me. That is, if something is happening in London today, that is what is, for me, it is Paroksha. If I go and see personally, then it becomes Pratyaksha. Whereas, there is a third type of knowledge that is called as Aparoksha Jnanam. That Aparoksha Jnanam means what? There is no difference between, it is not a knowledge of Paroksha Jnanam, that means it is distant from me. It is not Pratyaksha Jnanam, it is not coming out of the 5 sense organs, the knowledge coming from the 5 sense organs. Like, for example, the knowledge is, it's a foul smell, good smell, fragrance. It's a soft touch, hard touch through the skin. It's a good form, bad form through the eyes. Good music, bad music through the ears. These are all knowledge coming into me, into the mind. But the third type of jnanam is called as Aparoksha Jnanam. Aparoksha Jnanam means what? It is me, myself. It is not an object, but it is the subjective knowledge. This Aparoksha Jnanam is the ultimate. This is the knowledge of the subject. Paroksha Jnanam and Pratyaksha Jnanam is both are dealing with objects. One is with reference to being nearer to the sense organs. Another means knowledge which is far away from the sense organs. When it is far away, it is called as Paroksha Jnanam. When it is nearer, it is called as Pratyaksha Jnanam. And when there is no difference between me, the knowledge about me, myself, the subjective knowledge is called as Aparoksha Jnanam. This knowledge is not about an object, it is about the subject. There is no difference between object and me.
Does it mean self-realization?
Yes, it is self-realization. Aparoksha Jnana means self-realization. The same self I learn from the Upanishad, for example, then it becomes Paroksha Jnanam. Paroksha Jnanam means what? There is Atma. When the scripture tells me there is something called as pure consciousness, that is called as Paroksha Jnanam. But when I say I am that Atma, it becomes Aparoksha Jnanam. It becomes self-realization. I am that Atma. I am that pure consciousness from which the body is coming, the sense organs are coming, the whole world is coming, for a few hours, for a temporary, maybe 8 hours every day. But this is not the real nature. The real nature of mind, the real home is my pure consciousness in which there is no body, in which there is no mind. And that is only revealed to me by the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishad. Without that, there is no proof. That is why we say that Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishad is the pramanam. Like the eyes are pramanam for me, the Gita and the Upanishad is the eye to reveal this consciousness, to say that that consciousness is my real home. There is no other proof except the scriptures. Okay, we had a very, very long and a deep, extremely deep. I've never had such a deep session of question answer, 45 minutes of extreme depth. Question to question has been extremely deep. Contemplate on this. I can see there's a lot of depth in the class. So it's beautiful when we go into these aspects. The question on Paroksha Jnanam is very, very beautiful because that takes us directly to the self-knowledge. And okay, thank you and good night.
Thank you, Shivaratri.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shiviji. Good night.
Thank you, Shekharji.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.